Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War, Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are playing as the Dwarves against the Forces of Chaos on the map Bleak Dale. And so this time around I did decide to take a little bit of a risk against Chaos and bring a build that took no artillery whatsoever. And this is a risk against Chaos because of course they can bring Hell Cannons, and without artillery Dwarves have a very hard time shutting Hell Cannons down. So as it turns out, my opponent did bring Hell Cannon, so definitely a bit of a rough startup, but nonetheless, let's gotta break things down and look at what we brought. For my Lord, I did decide to bring a Rune Lord once again on the Anvil of Doom because I did bring the Locus of Power. I really wanted that magic resistance because I'm going very elite with my infantry. Alongside that, we do have Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin, as well as Master Rune of Negation for survivability. I figured Oath and Steel is just not worthwhile on the Dowie, because chances are your opponent's going to mass Chaos Marauders with great weapons. They'll bring Chaos Warriors, Chosen, whatever, but it's going to be a lot of great weapons, throwing axes, Hell Cannons, that sort of stuff. Oath and Steel won't help. No heroes alongside him. I've definitely been trying more and more Dowie builds without heroes, and given that Thanes are having their Tormentor Swords removed next patch, I think it might be something necessary to get adjusted to. But the front line here, the PK Guard anchoring things in the center, backed by two Hammers out on the flank, no Gremlins Ironbreakers out in the front, and the Grumbling Guard in the back, so providing that Vigor aura. So kind of stacking multiple elite units here with lots of AP and decent melee stats on them as well, to try to kind of overwhelm and grind down any enemy infantry in a straight up fight. The Gremlins Ironbreakers will do okay against squishy infantry such as Chaos Marauders. They'll definitely sort of provide an additional anchor for the Hammers who don't trade as effectively there. Out on the flanks, we do have some Longbeards on one end, Dwarf Warriors on the other, because obviously we're on a bit of a budget, and these guys, of course, will be providing additional sort of chaff clearance. In the very back, 2 units of Bugman's Rangers. Bugman's Rangers, of course, are rather decent at holding their own if your opponent breaches the backline, because they've got immunity, psychology, charge defense against large. They're pretty quick on their feet, so they can reposition. They've got regen, so they're definitely pretty solid. And here, they're actually, for a few reasons. Part of the reason, I figured if my opponent brings Chaos Marauders with great weapons, these guys will do rather well against them. Second of all, I really want to deal with Marauder Horsemen, because of course these guys can still be a threat with their throwing axes, especially to elite infantry like Hammers. In the back we do have some Dragonback Slayers to provide additional protection. And up in the sky I did bring a Gyrocopter with a Brimstone Gun to interfere with what I assumed might be one Hell Cannon, and perhaps apply some pressure to units like Chariots or whatever. Personally, I'm not a big fan of Gyrocopters with Brimstone Guns, usually with a more normal Dwarf build. I wouldn't recommend them at all. If you go over their actual mathematical sort of stat, if you go over the math and over their chances of doing damage and knocking units out, they're really not a very good unit, especially not for their cost. But personally, I think Gyrocopters need a bit of a buff. But nonetheless, I did bring them to kind of shut down Hell Cannons because I figured that is a job they can do reasonably well. For my opponent's build, he did bring Sarthorel the Everwatcher, so a pretty common pick against the Dowie. He did bring Plague of Rust, which of course nukes down armor, and he did bring Final Transmutation. Now, Plague of Rust I think is a rather odd choice because even to an Overcast, it is minus 60 armor on the Dowie, but that's kind of irrelevant against the Dwarves when your entire front line is all AP. There are some Forsaken here on the peripheries, but the rest of this, you've got 2 Chosen with great weapons. My opponent brought a front line of Chaos Marauders with great weapons, so you can see very decent melee attack and decent armor piercing. But not that much non-AP, so I figured it wouldn't be that useful. Nonetheless, you can see the Hell Cannon already teeing off, trying to hit those Gremlins Ironbreakers. Now, fortunately, I do have that additional magic resistance, and Hell Cannons do magic damage. So Splash, that would normally take off multiple models, perhaps, will be struggling to really put a dent in these guys, or do as much damage. If it lands in the middle, obviously it'll kill the troops caught in the middle, but the Splash will not do anywhere near as much to the surrounding Ironbreakers, which is very important. In the meantime, you can see my Gyrocopter kind of hovering over, doing a quick drive-by as my opponent's horsemen try to close. Sarthorel, of course, has monstrous missile resistance, so unless you mass Gyrocopters, you can't really shut him down. If we look, it's got 60% missile resist, so he's a very, very tanky lord. But nonetheless, I do pull my Gyrocopters here over top of the Hell Cannon and fire off a volley. You can see they do a little bit of damage there, lobbing their shots in. They've not even got, it's not even 300 HP damage per volley, so nothing too inspiring, but you know, every little bit counts. Meantime, though, you can see Hell Cannon fire continuing to pour in. Hell Cannons, though, are rather inaccurate, so you don't have to worry about them too much. Or you do definitely have to worry about them. I have to push in here as quickly as I can. But you can see that the Splash is not doing as much because these guys do have that additional magic resistance, and it's something you never want to underestimate, really. But we are pushing forward. You can see my opponent is pushing out his Chaos Marauders to kind of intercept. You can see I actually unload on him with the Bugman's Rangers there. Doing quite a bit of work. Knocking them down by already. These guys only have 15 armor and no shields. So they're doing rather badly. And you can see there. Already down to down by about 2,000 HP, so over 2,000 HP in a very short period of time. So And just, yeah, 2 volleys from the Bugman's Rangers. So definitely a solid performance early on, and we are just pushing onward. I really can't afford to stop and waste time. There's not much I can do anyway. So we are peppering away at these horsemen a little bit with our Bugman's Rangers, and otherwise just pushing forward. Because once the Ironbreakers get into position, they can kind of nuke these guys down with their satchel charges, and I can pressure them with my hammers and that sort of stuff. You can see the gyrocopters repositioning, trying to spin around and get on the Hell Cannons. The Norglem's Ironbreakers are getting chunked up quite a bit in there with the constant Hell Cannon fire. My opponent does feign a charge here. Some satchel charges go out. Big mistake on my part, a waste of ammo on my part. Plus exposing my Ironbreakers to enemy fire, but nonetheless the hammers here will get a catch on Sarthoel and start beating him down. And of course Sarthoel is not very tanky by Chaos standards, really. You can see once again all that fire pouring in into those Marauder horsemen, trying to whittle them down. They do have shields actually, so frontally they're kind of resistant. But you can see the gyrocopters trying to just kind of flank around, get into position to fire on the Hell Cannon and make themselves a nuisance as my front line does close. My opponent was constantly falling back, trying to slowly but surely stall his way towards the Hell Cannon, but I'm keeping up that constant pressure, pushing forward with Dwarf Warriors and Hammers, and now the Dragonmax Slayers are trying to get on top of Sarthoel and shut him down. Fortunately, the Norglem's Ironbreakers have been taking a beating, and with my bad positioning there, I let him get really nuked by the Hell Cannon. Should have kept him in the spaghetti line. But Sarthoel here getting a little greedy, diving into the back of him. You can see another Hell Cannon hit, definitely doing quite a bit of damage. But now the gyrocopters, firing away. My opponent stopped microing his Marauder Horseman for a little bit as he pushes forward with his troops. But you can see the PK Guard is going to make short work of these Chaos Marauders. Satchel Chargers flying in, doing quite a bit of work. And here on the periphery, you can see a Rune of Wrath and Ruin just went down these Forsaken, who will get intercepted by Longbeards, who of course can beat them in an extended fight. Unfortunately, these Bugman's Rangers being a bit mismicroed, or quite a bit mismicroed by me, but Sarthoel is getting caught in the pits and beaten down. Red Dwarf Warriors do intercept the Forsaken, who, while they probably will beat Dwarves in a straight up fight like this, where they don't get their charge bonus off and they get caught and they're not even focusing on the Dwarves, they're not going to do that well. Anytime you can see, I do start focusing my Bugman's Rangers on the Hell Cannon. You might, as I'm very fond of saying, this is very important. If you have enemy artillery in range with your shooting, you can take it out usually within 1 or 2 volleys. Try to focus it down as quickly as you can. Even with non-AP missiles, you can do quite a bit. You can see the Hell Cannon here just getting absolutely demolished by that focused Bugman's fire. That's very important. Now, you can see it's counter-battering, firing back at the Bugman's Rangers, but, they're doing their best. They're trying their little hearts out and tanking. You can see the Marauder Horsemen here getting caught by the hammers and really beaten down. My opponent was trying to simply stall for his Hell Cannons to do work, but you can see this Hell Cannon is about to be taken out. You can see the Longbeards over here doing okay, and the Hell Cannon here is going to shortly get taken out by that focused Bugman fire. And the Hell Cannon, having such a huge model, is really rather easy to deal with, and you can see there it finally does explode, and I'll shortly be able to shift fire. Now, here I do keep my units in a defensive mode so that they continue shooting, and we can start unloading on the second Hell Cannon, which has already been whittled down by the gyros. As, of course, I do continue trying to shut down Sarthoel with the Slayers, who of course do extra damage to large. Over here, the Forsaken did get caught by the Rune Lord and the Dwarf Warriors. And on the periphery, you can see these Dragonmax Slayers struggling a little bit because they get kind of caught by the Chosen with great weapons, but the Hammers holding okay with their decent melee stats, and you can see my opponent's line definitely crumbling here. The Hammers buckling the troops over there. These Chaos Marauders are very badly beaten up. They won't last long. You can see now I'm trying to take the gyrocopters around the flank to start whittling away at the Chosen from behind. Over here, the Bugman's Rangers still around and kicking. Unfortunately, once being kind of mismicroed here by me against Sarthoel, I should have kept them firing on the Chaos Marauders, which I do start doing shortly thereafter. Over here, of course, the PK Guard is still owning its way through all of these Marauders, raking in over 130 kills at this point. Over here, this Hammer group is going to get on top of the Hell Cannon crew, which of course will not last very long at all. They're unbreakable, but that's fairly irrelevant against a bunch of your angry kin swinging giant hammers at you. So you can see these poor guys just getting absolutely demolished and definitely not having a good time of it against those hammers. So, interestingly enough, my opponent does get a little bit of a recharge here, perhaps trying to pin these guys in for the Chaos Marauders, but with the Bugman's Ranger continuously firing in and Sarthoel getting caught out, and of course with his magic damage, he's not doing that much with all that magic resistance we've got stacked. In the meantime, my opponent here is tied down against the Hammers and the Grumbling Guard, who are of course keeping Vigor up, and at this point, my opponent does simply decide to GG out. So, as my Hammers were flanking around to get a bit of a recharge and do some more damage on those Chosen. So, what I thought was a kind of fun build to try out, and also just to show that Hell Cannons, a few things, honestly, Hell Cannons are not very good in their current state. They're bugged. They tend to hit the ground. I did make some serious mistakes with my positioning with the Gremlins. I should have just kept pushing forward and ignored Sarthoel, left him to the Dragonbacks. But the Hell Cannons didn't do that much. Second problem was my opponent's targeting. Honestly, focusing on the Norgrim's Ironbreakers was, I think, a mistake. A better investment would have been to focus on the hammers or the, especially the PK guard, try to knock down that HP pool that's otherwise much more threatening to your chosen. So I think those were really two major mistakes for my opponent. Otherwise, interesting build with taking Sarthrel with Plague of Rust, but not much in the way of non-AP, so I thought that was a bit of a waste. And definitely Hell Cannons I think are risky. Personally, I don't think... One of the things I would say is actually they're not that good against Dwarves to begin with, because Dwarves can just spaghetti line, and their cannons will demolish your Hell Cannons in a straight-up fight in a very cost-efficient manner, so something to keep in mind. But as for my build, I definitely found it enjoyable. I did kind of want to demonstrate a little bit of use for the Gyrocopters. Personally, I think they're a terrible unit by and large. All three variants, I guess 4 if you include the Regiment around Gyro Bomber, the Skyhammer. I think they're all terrible, but they do have occasional niche uses, like here when you need to just harass and pressure your opponent's backline and things like that. They can do an okay job just floating around and making themselves a nuisance. So you can see here, not much impressive. You're not going to get good DPS out of them over the course of a long game. They do less than 100 damage per volley. So if you do the math with only 18 rounds. Or less than 100 damage per gun per volley. So with only 3 gyrocopters and only 18 rounds of ammo, they're doing a lot. They're doing even less damage than say a bolt thrower with much less range, of course. Not that good accuracy. Oftentimes you won't be taking off entire models even on units like Chosen or Phoenix Guard or even White Lions. You'll struggle sometimes to kill them off. So definitely something to keep in mind. Nonetheless, I did enjoy this build. I did think it's pretty fun to go aggressive with the Dalvi. It's always fun to do something unexpected and interesting like that. And Bugman's Rangers, of course, paying their dues there, shutting down the enemy artillery, who would have, in the long run, been a danger. For my opponent's build, like I said, my main criticism, honestly, Hell Cannons are not that good of a choice against Dwarves in general right now. And the interesting choice of magic on Sarthrel, I think, was a little bit of a mistake. But other than that, good game to my opponent, the Griffin here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. Any comments, any criticism, anything like that, be sure to share them, and I'll respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.